welcome to being here. I'm Ariel.
That would make me shy.
It would.
It would.
Today's episode is
Serendipity Fiesta.
Wow. You know, we originally came up, actually, shout out to Lenore, who is one of our guests today. I was on a walk one day with Lenore actually, she was at home. She wasn't feeling really well, but I was having a walk and had my earbuds in. And we were talking about how everything had fallen into sync. And it was like a serendipity of moments. This popped and that popped and everything fed into each other.
When you say popped and popped, it doesn't create a picture, though. What are you talking about? What popped?
Well, I took a picture of, it was Halloween, and I took a picture of a young girl in climbing out of a what do you call that?
Log?
Yeah, well, it looked like a log, but she looked like a little wood sprite, her gnome. Her dad and mom had dressed her up, and they had dressed up her wagon to look like a fairy bower. And you were fishing, and then we met up. And I saw something else I wanted to take a picture of, and something else. And I took a picture of this truck on a farm, and the farmer came out and said, oh, I asked him if it was his truck, and he said, yes. And you drove up, and we started speaking with him, and he owns the property that a
river runs through,
and is private property and owned by a fishing club that's very exclusive. And he said, oh, I never use my fishing rights here. I'll give you my landowner button so you can fish here anytime you want. And it was a piece of property that was so beautiful, and we looked at it so many times, and just the timing of going and seeing everything fell into place. A moment later, I wouldn't have seen this child. A moment later, we wouldn't have had this meeting with the farmer. Everything was exquisite, and life is exquisite when you're here for it. In my experience, that day we weren't trying to get anywhere. We were just being where we were.
And it unfolded with perfection, because if you don't resist it, if you are there to experience it, it's all perfect. And but what you're also talking about is it aligned with our desires.
Mm-hmm.
It aligned with our agenda, if you will.
I mean, I took pictures that day of pumpkins in a field that you told me about.
Right.
And I said yes to your impression of this field of glowing color. And I went and looked for it, found it, climbed into it, took pictures of it, then took pictures of the reflection of the colors on our car. Everything was a flow from one thing to another. And I find that possibility also happens when I'm working in the office, when I'm making a meal. We had friends over last night, and they talked about us cleaning up after the meal and setting up after the meal like a dance. The two of us work together like a dance.
Well, you know, in a way, we don't work together. We work independently and cooperatively, and as in cooperate, to operating as one. But it's not as though it's arranged. It's I just do what I do, you do what you do, and everything gets done.
Well, this is a weird example, but if I'm opening the microwave while you're stepping over to wash something in the sink and they're close together, we automatically shift for the space that the microwave door takes, that I take, that you take.
But it's unspoken.
It's unspoken. We don't have to say, could you step aside, please? It's just a registering of what's in our space and accommodating it without complaint.
Yes.
And if you want serendipity, it's not don't complain. It's get interested in how and where you complain, as opposed to make a declaration that you won't.
Oh, well, you're going to complain because life doesn't show up the way you'd prefer. I mean, if you're doing something and telephone rings, it's a justifier for complaining, because it's getting in your way.
Or if you don't sleep well and you have an early morning meeting, it's something you can include, or it's something that can ruin your day.
Your moment.
That's
right.
Well, it is a cascading series of moments where this rotten thing moves into that rotten thing, or it's something you embrace as a fact and move on to the next thing.
Right.
We didn't talk about listening, so listen up. How's that?
Listening is really hearing what somebody has to say without agreeing with what they're saying or disagreeing with what they're saying, but allowing what they're saying to come into you as their point of view. And they can't be wrong about their point of view, because that's the point they look at life from. Hence, point of view.
When you pause, listening without my mind filled in, without embellishment.
Yeah, I know.
And then you said a whole bunch of things that were so much better, and I listened to it.
Well, good.
Yeah, it was very cool.
Yeah. If we stop talking for a minute, their minds fill in with what they think we're going to say, rather than what is there to be said.
Let's take our first guest.
Oh, shall we?
All right, Miss Lenore, welcome to being here. Where are
Hi.
you from?
I'm here in Montclair, New Jersey.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks. I was listening to what you're saying about without embellishment, to just be there for what someone's saying. And I realize I'm a sign language interpreter as well as a teacher and many other things. But when I'm interpreting, if I have stuff going on in my head, then it's very difficult to interpret what's being said rather than what's going on in my own head. Do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean. But you see, here's the thing. You don't take into account how intelligent you are, how brilliant you are. So for you, sign language, you do it so automatically and you express words through your physicality so well that you don't realize how incredibly profound it is, and then it isn't, because it becomes so normal to you that you don't see. So you still complain to yourself about your translation.
Right. Right.
And allow yourself to be the translation.
Yeah.
I actually think that I've seen you translate many times for many years, and I know you do some bigger things, like you've translated at the UN, you've translated in Lincoln Center, you've done some large things, you do some small things, you teach classes, you have private students that you tutor, etc. And of course, if you are translating for a musical performance at Lincoln Center or Madison Square Garden, you are going to be doing it as a performance in addition to expressing the words. If you're doing the translation for a trombone, you're going to be performing. But right. There are times, Lenore, where you add performance where performance is not needed. And I know before we started today, you felt a little, again, under the weather, like you were lightheaded. We suggested you have something to eat. There's a stillness in you now that is really compelling. And I don't think you allow yourself to be still unless you're not feeling well.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's true.
You know, and we've spent a lot of time with you over the holidays. It's been lovely. But I feel like sometimes you have this pressure to entertain or fill the space, or you add that extra something that has to be fatiguing.
Yes, that's true.
But you see, here's the thing. When you see it, you don't just see it.
Yeah.
You think, I shouldn't be doing this. So then it accentuates it. Because as you resist being the way you're being, you perpetuate what you say you don't want or don't like.
Yeah.
You came over to our house the other day, and I said to you, Lenore, relax. You do not need to produce here today. And then you proceeded to produce. I can't tell you enough that you're okay being you. You've got to discover you're okay the way you are right now. Of course, now is all there is, so
Yeah.
you're okay.
I mean, it's easy for you to see in other people that they're okay. It's more challenging for you to see it in yourself, for certain. You know, on that walk on that day, I walked for, I think it was, you know, more than an hour, like an hour and 15 minutes, whilst I was proceeding to tell you that I hadn't done enough that day. And
yes.
you know, I was saying it a little lightheartedly, but we were laughing at how the internal conversation thinks I'm a slacker whilst I'm in the midst of, you know, being very active. And the day was exquisite. So laughing at those internal perceptions relieved me of the burden of thinking they were true.
Right. Right. Yeah. I don't always, I haven't in the past always recognized that switch over from into performance or into.
Well, look, whenever you feel uncomfortable,
Mhm.
you know, whenever you feel insecure, which is most of the time.
Yep.
So, you know, but if you see it, it's the beginning of the end of it if you don't judge yourself for it. And if you judge yourself for it, if you don't judge yourself for judging yourself for it,
Yeah.
so you find a place of neutrality when you realize that in this moment, you can only be exactly as you are, exactly where you are, exactly how you are. You can't be different than you are. So that complaining voice that tells you should be different, it's just a complaining voice. But if you believe that voice is you, then you work on yourself. And, you know, the name of our first book, Working on Yourself Doesn't Work.
Yes.
You know, it says in the description, tune into this week's lively episode of Being Here and let the party begin. We have a picture, the global we, that a party is upbeat and bright and streamers, but the party can be your stillness, your well-being, your deep well of contentment, looking out of eyes that are well in themselves.
See, the problem is that we've all been dipped in this idea that we're not enough exactly as we are. and that something in the future will be better than what we've got. So we strive to get to the top of the mountain just to find that there's another mountaintop on top of that.
We've done that.
We've done that.
Mhm.
You know, where you can't see the top, but you know it's up there, so you're going to get there, and you get there, and then, well, there's another 3,000 feet to go up.
Well, you know, the other thing
And
too,
you're never enough for that conversation in your head.
I think as kids, sometimes we perceive that big people in particular around us are unhappy. So then we scramble to try and figure out how to make them happy. And it's an insatiable need. You cannot make another person happy. So if you trained yourself to ping out into your environment, perceive what you believe they need, and then try to produce it, then it becomes a strategy for life that takes over you rather than allowing you to rest and be enough. And that, you know, that walk, that I call it a walk we took together.
Yes.
You were resting. It was profound. You don't have to be any way in order to be a full-blown Lenore. So if you get that, you might not have to keep driving yourself into a fatigued state in order to be able to rest in yourself.
Yeah. That's nice.
And I'm familiar with that one. Sometimes I don't give myself a full-blown break until I, quote, need it. And it's really fun to be able to,
You know,
set it up, schedule it.
Ariel has a lot more, what's the word I want? She allows me liberties that she doesn't allow herself.
Absolutely.
Uh,
So,
Like you'll say, I think I need a nap. I'm like, great. And but if I think to myself, I think I need a nap, it's kind of like,
well, once I get this done, maybe I'll think about it.
Right.
This is what I was talking about. You know, if you're not hard on yourself for being hard on yourself, it neutralizes. It's a place of neutrality. It's how I'm wired. So because I am familiar with that, then I can actually give myself a break.
See, the other thing is this. This is it.
Mhm.
This moment of now is what is your life in this moment.
If you're performing, that's your magnificence. If you're still, that's your you are magnificent.
Exactly as you are in this moment.
Not when you handle this performance thing.
Okay.
And life is never going to show up the way you want it to, because your wants and desires all come from your history of what you consider positive. And so you try to influence your environment to have it turn out positively, rather than allow yourself to be the way you are. So if you're in disagreement with the way your universe is showing up, you're in constant stress. If you allow life to be as it is, there's this possibility of a deep sense of well-being for no reason. I like the for no reason part, because you tend to blame how you feel on the circumstances rather than allow yourself to feel what you're feeling, because that's what you're feeling in this moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well-being is not circumstantial.
Thank you. I feel like me. Thanks.
Nice.
Good.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Mhm. Pleasure.
It's time for our listener feedback spotlight.
Okay, so here we go.
We're going to hear from one of our listeners about how transformation
has impacted her life or his life. Let's see.
Yeah. And if you'd like to learn more about what we're up to, come, you could register for any of our upcoming virtual courses.
Or sign up for our newsletter. Just visit
transformationmadeeasy.com.
It really is easy.
It is easy if you know the way.
Hi, I'm Maike from Düsseldorf in Germany. Transformation for me is allowing myself to be the way I am in each moment of my life.
Do you want to have well-being with consistency? Connect with people all over the world from the comfort of your own home at Ariel and Shire's lively interactive Living Made Easy virtual seminars. Join any of their 2-hour online events or take a deep dive into the magic of being you at a virtual weekend seminar. Come on, let's connect. Find out more and register at transformationmadeeasy.com.
This Saturday, in the US time zone, the Living Made Easy is 1 hour later. We start at 10 a.m. due to the time zone changes. It hasn't happened yet in Europe, and we wanted to keep it in the same time zone for our European friends. So if you're joining us for Living Made Easy and you're joining us from the United States, it'll be 1 hour later will be the start time. We also, of course, have Living Made Easy next Monday. Being Alive happens in about 10 days. Hope you're being alive now. But
It would help.
yes, our weekend seminar at Camp Tecumseh here in New Jersey.
It's a residential group that will, this happens on a beautiful piece of property, about 400 acres, beautiful environment to discover your aliveness.
It's Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday, the 24th, 25th, and 26th.
It's very interesting discovering your aliveness in that most of the time you're discovering your thoughts. You're lost in your thoughts about what you want, don't like, and you miss being alive. So a residential group like this drops you into a different environment than your normal environment, into nature, if you will, where there are trees and a lake
and company
and people
too.
rather than you.
Yeah, to enjoy it with. It's really is sleepaway camp for big kids. Our next virtual seminar, Step Into Your Brilliance, April 22nd and 23rd. And just a reminder, we are coming to Europe, Hamburg, Germany, the end of May, 25th, 6th, 7th, 8th. We're doing a Freedom to Breathe course there. And then we're doing a weekend fun as the access way to enlightenment. Costa Rica is open. You're welcome to join us. You can find out about anything we're up to on our website, transformationmadeeasy.com. All right, let's take our next guest. Thank you, honey. Zoe.
Hi.
Ooh, hi, Zoe. Where are you zooming in from?
I'm zooming in from Manhattan.
I see you have your cat, Honey, in your...
I do. He's
Speaking of serendipity,
yeah.
I remember when you got Honey.
You do.
Tell people a little bit about how that came about.
When I moved into this apartment, there was this dollar store that I would go into a lot and pick up little things, and they had this beautiful cat there. And every time I would go, I would just pet the cat, and the cat was so sweet to me. And I was like, "Oh, what's the cat's name?" And they're like, "Oh, it's just the store cat, it doesn't have a name." So I was like, "Oh my God, it's Honey." And they started calling, they thought it was a she at the time. They started calling this cat Honey, and I kept coming and I'd pet the cat. And eventually they were like, "Listen, do you want this cat? Like, I don't think this owner even wants to keep it here, and you love it. Do you want her?" And I just said yes. And I took her home and found out she was a he, and got, and it was just a really fun serendipitous adventure.
Well, what's interesting about that is life is a fun serendipitous adventure. We have no control of what's going to come. That honey showed up in your life when he did was completely outside your control.
And you were also following your heart, because I recall you telling me that on that day you made an excuse to go into that store to buy something you didn't need because you wanted to visit the cat.
I forgot about that. Yes, now I remember. I was like, I need more sponges. And I went in there and I got sponges and I just hung out with Honey, and yeah.
Yeah, you get to hang out with them regularly.
Yeah, exactly. I'm so glad. Yeah.
Did you have a question for us today or anything else you wanted to talk about?
Well, I was so moved. I'm kind of surprised how emotional I feel, but I was just so moved by your conversation with Lenore. And I related to many elements of it. And I don't think I realized until maybe this moment how much I've been complaining about myself to myself.
Yes.
Yeah. It feels more intense lately, but maybe I'm just noticing it. I don't know.
Well, look, I think you've always been hard on yourself. Okay? But here's the thing. You think life should show up differently than it is or has been. I mean, you like a lot of the things about your life. You like that you have Honey and Mr. Handsome.
Yeah.
That's her other cat.
Right.
You like that you have your artwork you can put on the wall behind you.
You like that you teach art in a elementary school. You like all those things, but there's something in your idea missing.
Yeah. Yes. And
am I correct about that?
you are correct.
Yes.
I recently had, it was the holidays. I recently had a birthday and there's New Year's, and I feel like there's more reminders of, yes, I'm hard on myself about.
You see, you think you should be where you're not, have what you don't have.
Yeah, of course. Aren't all the pictures of New Year's Eve you're kissing your boyfriend?
Right.
Stroke of midnight. All those people in Times Square celebrating. I did that one year. It was awful.
I did that one year. It was freezing cold. I didn't do it with you.
There ended up being masses of drunk people. It was not something I would ever do again, but they make it look good on television.
So you have the idea you should have a relationship by now. You should have children by now.
Right. Even though
somehow your life isn't the right life for you to be living because you don't have what you think you need to have. But here's the thing, my dear, those think you need to have thoughts were programmed in a very long time ago when you got your first baby doll.
Right.
It wasn't a Barbie, it was a baby.
Right.
Barbie came later.
That's true.
And then you failed there too because you're not as long-legged as she is.
And you have nipples. Those Barbies are very strange. Yeah.
But when I cut my hair, it grows back. So
that's true.
That's true.
Did you ever cut your Barbie's hair?
I definitely did that. Yeah. Yeah.
That was permanent.
We've known you for a number of years, Zoe, and I'm not, I hadn't really thought about it, but I'm not surprised you're very touched by the conversation we had with Lenore, because most of us as young people put together a persona that we think is a better version of us, and we live through that persona, and you have a bright personality, but sometimes you put on an extra bubbliness that you constructed as a young person because you probably got a lot of kudos for it. That was your cute version. And I'm sure you see a lot of your young kids, because you have kindergarten through what, 6th grade?
The other thing is this, I'm sure you watched a lot of television as a child, and you get role models there of how you're supposed to be.
Those cute childhood actors who, if you follow them, they all go on to have these horrific lives, most of them.
Right.
But this is what Zoe's supposed to look like.
Yes. Sometimes recently I've been noticing that bubbly thing on top, and it's almost like I don't know how to stop.
Well, don't be it, embrace it, feel it, discover it, know what it feels like from the inside out. If you try to stop it, that's the first principle. Anything you judge, don't want, don't like, try to be different, you intensify. This is me. I must be uncomfortable. Look at me. I'm being bubbly.
Right.
And I see a genuine you coming out. And what you used to attract were the people who wanted the bubbly. And then when you weren't that all the time, it melted down because it was like, you weren't some artificial sweetener.
So true. Yeah.
And I'll tell you, I watched you petting Honey earlier. I know people can't see this, but we can. But Honey was not looking for bubbly. He just enjoyed you being with him.
Yes. I love that.
He's like, oh, you're petting me again. Hello.
Yeah. I really love that about animals. They are, they just don't care. They don't care what they look like. They don't care what you look like. Yeah.
Well, if we look at this cooperation between Shia and I, that the dance, our kitchen dance, our office dance, our bed, wherever we're dancing, the dance is the sweetest when we don't have attention on what we look like. When we're just where we are.
That's really cool. I love that.
Sweet being with you today.
Yes, very.
Thank you so much.
See, you just don't realize that you're okay the way you are. You need to embellish it.
Yeah, embellishment. That was an interesting word that came up today.
Yeah.
You got to embellish because you're not
This
enough.
is not enough, but this is enough.
Now,
This is more than enough.
It's interesting. I have a favorite pair of shorts. I bought them once at a consignment store. These shorts, I love these shorts. We somehow got a little bit of glue on them, and you embellished them for me. You put
An embroidery
of I asked you to put a flower or something on it, and you did this incredible little embroidery that enhanced these shorts so that now they're not only the silhouette fits, they're wonderful. I can wear them lots of times without them looking bad. They're now cuter than ever. Embellishment is not bad. It when you do it on purpose.
But when you automatically add to what doesn't need adding to, you overburden it.
So I
Mm.
don't want you to identify your bubbly or embellishing nature or your creative nature as a bad thing. We can take all those things about us that we identify as bad are part of what make us this complex, magnificent person, as opposed to, something to be ashamed of.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for being with us today.
Yeah. Yes, thank you.
Wow, that was fun.
Yes, it was.
I know we've said this before, so I'm going to say it again. It may be similar. If you feel to leave a review on your favorite podcast app, or if you feel to share this episode with someone you feel it would touch, why not go ahead and do that? You make a difference. It matters. If you don't feel to do it, don't worry. It's all fine. You are fine. If you feel to, thanks in advance. If you don't feel to, thanks in advance. You ready for next week's podcast?
I am.
Ready? Here it is.
Oh no.
There goes my mojo. All right, we'll be back next week.
So come on back.
Yeah, why not?
And don't miss.
Being
That's right.
here.
Being